Hello, and welcome to Temple of the Falsepod, where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
And I had to make sure that I'm actually recording my audio, which I am. So welcome to episode 96. 96? 97? I'm going to put in the correct answer here.
Perfect.
We are somewhere deep into season 10. We're quickly approaching episode 100.
100. See how I stole your line? Yeah.
Son of a...
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, as
That's what
you
you
can
call
tell.
trampling a segue.
Yeah. Segue, which is...
No. You know, it wasn't even a segue. It was the lead. It was the... what do you... See, now I'm really destroying it. What do you call the thing where you say it and then later on the payoff comes?
Callback? Setup?
No. There's a word. Word. I know there's a word. It's like, it's like when you're watching the show and they show the gun over the mantle.
Oh, like a Chekhov's
the
gun situation. Yeah.
Kinda. Yeah, I'll think of it at some point and then I'll just blurt it out.
Great. So when we hear Bruce say random nonsense,
right.
It'll be that. I'll actually zoom in and out real quick, and everybody will be like, "Whoa!" Because if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that. Otherwise, you will just hear him say it, and that'll be it.
Because if you're not watching on YouTube, it's like we're stealing from you.
Yeah.
Kinda. Well, maybe not really, but you're missing out.
You are missing out, and I put a lot of effort into our cool graphics. My wonderful wife made this border, and most of the art that accompanies with everything that's going on. So,
yeah,
shout out to Kelly. Give her some credit, I guess. Two thumbs up from Bruce, 2 thumbs up from me.
That's right.
If you couldn't tell, we are talking about theft today. Figured there's so much to talk about here, and we just kind of wanted a lighter topic than last week. So we went with theft, the lightest topic of all. Because, I mean, if you think about it, stealing people's creatures is a hard thing to do over webcam, for one. And with that, it's definitely been less of a part of my life lately, thieving. But I've definitely wanted to make decks around this.
It was part of your probation, wasn't it?
Yeah. They were like, you have to build 30 decks in 30 days. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. And I did not. So now I'm in jail. But back when Battle for Baldur's Gate, Commander Legends 2 came out, I wanted to build what's her name? The queen, the witch queen, Tasha. I wanted to build a Tasha deck, which revolved around taking people's cards, using them, making things, and getting value out of other people's decks.
Right.
Which, is a part of a lot of decks, honestly.
Okay, so quite often when you're thinking about cards that steal other people's stuff in Magic, you tend to think blue. Blue and red. But if you think blue, the idea is a lot of times for blue, getting rid of a permanent often involves a counter. In other words, you need to do it right away. Whereas the theft is sort of that delayed way to take away the threat. You're taking it away by taking it away from them and using it yourself. So quite often, I think you see a lot of people who are playing blue who are trying to avoid having a deck that's just wall-to-wall counter spells. They can look at cards with theft and be like, okay, well, if that permanent is an issue, I'll just take it, and now it's either going to be a benefit for me or you lose the benefit. Either way, that's kind of what they wanted. So
yeah, it's a bit of both, honestly. Yeah. And like creating value out of taking away value is I mean, honestly, like the twofold nature of it is pretty powerful. Right. We kind of we kind of saw it begin with control magic, which is an enchantment. From way back when. I mean, I think that's been it was like mid-90s.
Control magic.
I'm
pretty sure control magic is alpha, baby.
Oh my gosh. So we've been seeing effects like this since the beginning of Magic, and it started in blue, obviously. And I think that, I mean, other than like some sparse cards here and there, it's mostly been in like black and red. Like it's like Rakdos heavily at this point. But a lot of that comes with the phrase until end of turn, and then you have to return it. So then there came this giant archetype of stealing stuff and then sacrificing it. So it was like you stole something, and then since you had to give it back at the end of the turn, if you just sacrificed it, it's no one's anymore. It just goes to the graveyard.
The idea that you have to automatically sack the card, like if you're using the card for the turn with the intention of, okay, I'm taking this, you are never getting it back. That's the whole removal aspect that we talk about that blue doesn't really have. But blue, of course, everybody has a way to sacrifice permanents, and if blue can steal it, then you're all set. What it doesn't do, though, is, I mean, it sort of throws away the whole idea that why not borrow it? Sometimes the best play is to just borrow it. Somebody's got a big beater out on the board. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna just use that right now. I'll take it. I'll swing at somebody else, not you. Knock them in the head. You know
Bonk.
What? Would you like it back? Because I could sack it, so that you can't have it back. But I can just give it back to you if you'd like. You're not going to swing at me with that, are you? Excellent. Great. Here you are. Thank you so much for the use of your creature. You have a great day. And we don't see that happening a lot. It's not something that is often even considered. The auto response is, I've stolen it, I'm using it in combat, and now I'm going to sack it to get some kind of benefit. Or I'm going to sack it just so you can't use it. And it doesn't really have to be that way. I would love to see more players just sort of take a shot at, let's all just be friends. Let's just borrow it and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Now, I say this primarily because I'm working on a Yasova deck right now. And there's a big part of me that, wants to load it up with sack outlets to make sure that, that person who gets that permanent or who is going to get it back invariably at some point is just going to smack me on the head with it. And returning it back to them is probably a dangerous thing because maybe you won't be able to get it back again. Maybe. But I really want to try this out and see how borrowing the card works. Especially when you're borrowing it and then, like I said, offering it back on condition that they don't swing at you.
So I think going down this teamer route of Yasova is an interesting thing. And before we go down further, let's review the card. It's a 4/2 for 2 and a green legendary creature, human warrior from Fate Reforged. It has trample, and it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 1 hybrid is it. So it's 3 mana total, 2 of which have to either be red, blue, or any combination of the 2. If you do gain control of target creature an opponent controls with power less than Yasova Dragonclaw's power until end of turn, untap that creature and it gains haste till end of turn. So, at base, you play it first main phase, you go to combat, you can control, you borrow somebody's thing that has 4 or less power. Nope. 3 or less power, because it has to be less than Yasova's.
Yeah.
And then you give it back at the end of turn. Yeah. So it's definitely interesting, because it is that it is an overlap between red and green. I mean red and blue, not red and green. Green hardly has this ever. And so it's definitely going to be like an interesting deck that I'm sure we'll talk about either next season or the season after you get some games in with it.
It won't be that long.
But it's I don't know. It's an interesting it's an interesting way to look at, specifically even Izzet. Temur wants, green especially wants these big creatures. But then with red and blue, you usually think of instants and sorceries.
Putting this ability onto a green creature like this, I think they found a great way to do it, because one, you still need to have blue and or red to steal the creature, and that fits. But the idea that you're limiting it based on the creature's power itself is, it's a great limiting factor. It's something that can build over the course of the game as you make Yasova bigger. But it's a nice way to tie it into green by having that limiting factor be the greenness of the card.
And it's so interesting too, because the triggered ability on Yasova, which is something to keep in mind as well. It's not activated if you come across anything that cares. Is the same price as Threaten. Threaten is the general term for this type of effect because of the card Threaten it's from Onslaught. It's for 2 and a red. It's a sorcery. It says untap target creature and gain control of it till end of turn. That creature gains haste until end of turn. Yeah, so it's essentially the same price. You get a little bit more flexibility with being able to do blue, but you have to have 2 colored mana, so it kind of balances.
Right, and of course Threaten lets you get any creature as opposed to a creature with a limited power. But
that too.
Trust me, with Yasova, my plan is that really it won't be much of a limiter.
Yeah,
that's my hope. So
also very niche thing about Threaten is that you can target your own creatures just to give them haste and to untap them. Just a fun little trick you can do to if you're ever in that situation where you need to untap a creature or give it haste, or both. But yeah, so with this kind of thing, with borrowing, there's obviously room, especially with comparison to with stealing. There's room for politicking. There's room for I'm gonna give it back. Don't worry. Opening your mouth to speak is a powerful tool in a game of Magic, especially in a multiplayer format like Commander. And being able to look across the table and tell your opponent, hey, can I just borrow it for this turn and then I'll give it back? Like I whether or not you hit them with it or whatever, like you can work out a deal and figure that out. But it's much more.
I look at this like the idea of borrowing a creature.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Can I borrow? I know you've got that big commander that you're trying to do commander damage with. Can I borrow it? I'll swing at him. We'll double up that particular commander's damage on this person because 2 of us are swinging with it. You'll get it back, and then you can swing again and finish him off. But I just, I want to help. I want to hurry things along. Being a team player.
That especially helps with, if your opponent has like a Voltron strategy. You're piling a bunch of weapons and equipment on it, and it is doing its thing beyond just its thing. But I mean, and that's kind of the great thing with threaten type effects, is that you're using cards from outside of your deck to help either your deck along or take away from somebody else's. And I do just love the fact that, like, threaten effects alone just make the talk able to be done. Like, you can't really talk your way out of, oh, like, I'm gonna steal it and then not give it back, because people will not like that, and we'll talk about that much later in this episode. But I do just like the fact that it opens the gates to what's the word?
Diplomat?
Thank you. You can solve it diplomatically. I don't even remember what the beginning of that sentence was anymore.
Well, just the idea of when you borrow a creature, it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many different ways to use this diplomatically. You can say to an opponent, like, I'm not going to take yours, I'm going to take his. Or, I'm going to take yours, but I'll give it back. Or, I can sacrifice it. If I give it back, what can I get in return? There's just so many more ways to play the politics, to try and work it around and round, to try and take better advantage of a situation. Too many times it's I've got this card, I am going to take that. I'll take it, thank you, and now I'm going to attack where I want to. I'm done with that. Great, I'm going to use my high market, I'm going to destroy it, or I'm going to sacrifice it. I'm going to gain 1 life just so you don't get it. Here, put it in your graveyard.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one way to play it, and that's how most people play it. But you can really open up your options. You can really go a lot farther than that.
I think the thing with taking it, sacking it, is that, like, yeah, you're getting rid of a threat, but you're also using it before you do that. And I think your opponents can clearly see that. And, I mean, unless you're not. And those are, I think, very corner cases with this in mind. But I think that, like, overall, you're assessing a threat.
Right.
You're controlling a threat. And then you're using it to your advantage when, like, sometimes just killing the threat is a bit more exact. And, like, of course, as a play and as a player, like, you want to, use it to your own advantage more than you want to use it to other people's advantage. But politically, diplomatically, that's a different game entirely.
Right. And, I'm not saying that there aren't times when the correct play is simply, I'm taking your thing, I'm smacking somebody with it, I'm destroying, and I'm going to sacrifice it, throw it in your graveyard. You don't need to see that ever again.
Yeah.
And I would argue that that's probably going to happen more often. Like, that is probably going to be a more frequent scenario than the option of, I can take this creature, or the diplomacy behind it. I think those situations probably aren't as frequent as the other one that I've described, but so many times when those opportunities come up, they're just gone and not even considered.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think that it's a, like, the stealing or the borrowing and then sacking it is, I feel like, a really good strategy for indestructible creatures, and that's, that's a fun little way to get around that. But, like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, well, and more, we're getting more and more indestructible, and At least I'm finding more of that in our play group, just because it's such a difficult way to deal with things, or it's difficult to get around the indestructible part. So
I think even
having another way to do it.
I think even beyond the political nature of Yasova's triggered ability, I think that a big thing that comes is obviously you're taking away a blocker, which is great. But I think even more than that, you're taking away the possibility of somebody activating X, Y, or Z ability on the creature that you're taking away, or you're forcing them to do it now before you take it. Which is always nice. Like it's oddly control for such an aggressive strategy.
Right. Andy, I want to talk a little bit more about what you just brought up. The idea of you're taking away a blocker because you just are. This isn't... people oftentimes, they look at this and it's like, oh, this is this is a single creature moving. And yes, but in practicality, this is a 2 creature swing.
Right.
If you're playing 1-on-1 and we each have 1 creature, well, then if I swing, then you can block and take no damage. But if I borrow your creature, well, now I'm swinging with 2 creatures. You have none, and I'm going to get in to hit for damage. It creates a bigger swing, and it just there's the benefit is there now. If you are truly just borrowing the creature and you're swinging back at the person, you might want to think twice about returning that creature back to them, because I suspect they're not going to take too kindly to just having gotten smoked in the head by their own creature.
It's definitely like a similar situation to, like, I don't know why this is the first thing. I mean, I do know why this is the first thing that popped in my mind. It's a similar idea behind lifelink, where like you hit somebody with a 2/2 with lifelink, and it's not just a two life matter. It's they're losing 2 and you're gaining 2, and you're now 4 more apart than just the 2.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
there's
definitely
what
something.
is it like if you steal a creature with lifelink?
Ooh. What if it has menace? But yeah, there's definitely something there with giving it back. Obviously, the feel bads aren't necessarily as much there, and sometimes they are. Honestly,
right. I
think I've been, killed with my own creatures enough times for it to be like, But,
there are times when the borrow, I only need 1 shot.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm borrowing your creature, but it is going to finish you. At that point, borrow, permanently steal, it doesn't matter. They're just dead.
It's permanent because it's the end of the game.
Yes.
I do like your idea, though, of stealing somebody's commander in conjunction with somebody else attacking with that commander.
Right.
It coming at them from multiple sides. It's that it reminisces, or it reminds me. I reminisce about one of your other favorite cards, Assault Suit, because I just like I want Assault Suit to work so badly, and like it does its thing. Assault Suit, for those who don't know, is an equipment. It's 4 mana. It says equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has haste, can't attack you or planeswalker you control, and can't be sacrificed. So all of that is to the controller of the equipment, not the creature. So whoever plays the equipment.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until end of turn. If you do, untap it. So basically, it goes from person to person as much as you want it to. Like, obviously, if somebody would be a bigger threat with it, then maybe you don't want them to have it, or maybe you do. It's all May abilities for that last part.
Right.
But I really like this idea of, it's kind of the inverse of borrowing. It's lending out, you know.
Right, and the joy with the threaten effects. Mm-hmm. You threaten a creature, so now you have it. The downside for Assault Suit is that when you equip, you can only ever equip to a creature you control. Well, that's what threaten's for. Now suddenly I have your creature. At the end of my turn, you get it back.
Big brain plays, Bruce.
Exactly, but at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, I may have that player gain control of the equipped creature, even though it's now yours, until the end of the turn. So now everybody is getting their chance to play with your creature. And ideally, if I've taken your commander, I'm going to happily share that around the table, because you guys can't attack me, and everybody is hopefully taking commander damage, because that just sounds like a lot of fun to me.
I love that too, because like I feel like with commanders specifically, when they change zones, you can choose to put them in new back in the command zone, but changing control does not mean changing zone. It's still on the battlefield.
Yes.
It's weird because it doesn't have haste. With Assault Suit, it does. But it's just so, it's interesting, you know. It's
yes,
man, that's mad. You're a genius.
Keeps it a little weird.
Is this going in your Yusova deck?
Do you mean, is it already in my Yusova deck?
Beautiful.
I think it's time for us to take a quick break.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even talked about like just straight up stealing your stuff.
When we get back, we're going to talk about the blue side of things and permanent stealing, and you'll see how it ties back into Assault Suit. Because man, stealing commanders does not feel good. We'll be right back. This episode of Temple of Falspot is brought to you by Assault Suit. Not a pepper suit, Assault Suit. Hey, we're back.
Hey.
Oh. Wow.
So, I know we were going to jump right into stealing cards and like keeping them permanent. And I don't mean actually physically taking somebody else's cards and selling them for profit or anything like that. We're talking about just, gain control of you know what I'm talking about. But before we get to that, I did want to talk about the other benefit for either borrowing or permanently taking an opponent's permanents. It creates balance on the board. If you're building a deck and most of your threats are made up of cards that take other people's cards and use them against them, that your deck is automatically balanced to whatever they're playing. So if you find yourself at, say, a MagicCon in Philadelphia, then you play this kind of a deck, and it's going to better pair with whoever you're playing against, whatever the power level is of their decks, because you're using their stuff against them. So that should, in theory, match up the power almost perfectly. It's something I've always been enamored with because I love the idea of, the deck sort of balancing itself. Mm-hmm. The problem, of course, is that I'm also not a big fan of you stealing my stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. But I'm just saying, it's out there. So,
yeah.
So talking about permanently taking another player's permanence so that you can smack them over the head with it. Here, essentially the difference, red tends to do more of the threaten, more of the borrow, and blue tends to do a lot more of the permanent theft. Now, this is nowhere near a hard and fast rule. I'm confident that both of the colors do both, but it just blue tends to be more often the case where you get control of it permanently. Blue also tends to be focused on the you take a permanent. So it doesn't always have to be a creature. Most of the time it's a creature, but now a lot of times it just says target permanent. And so planeswalkers, baby, and
lands.
Lands, enchantments, artifacts. Yeah.
Depends on the artifact, for sure.
Depends on the artifact. But it opens it up so that you're solving your problems by making their powerful things their problem. Now they have to try and fix it. So it's a little tricky there.
Yeah, and I think that like it goes to show like how adaptable some decks can be, especially for certain metas, and how using other people's cards against them is, I guess, more of a show of their own power than yours as a deck. But like at the same time, like because it is a wild swing the other way and not just for the rest of the turn, it is this difficult thing where you're just never giving it back, What the first time I ran into this, or not the first time, but the biggest time, I guess, the first biggest time that I ran into this was in M20, Agent of Treachery. Which is a 2/3, and it says when Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. Period. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. That second part, whatever. The first part is the important part. It's permanent. You gain control of it, even if you don't control Agent of Treachery anymore. The thing is it's 5 blue, so it's 7 mana, which I get. It's hard to get out there because it's so high. But obviously nowadays with treasures, it's super easy. Now, M20 didn't have this many treasures, but what M20 did have was a lot of flicker effects. And blue, and especially white, have these a lot. So it comes in, you flicker it, or it comes in, you steal something, you flicker it, it comes in again, you steal something else. You have 2 things permanently. And that's any permanent. And now, obviously, in a multiplayer format, you can pick and choose from different people, and it's great. But it's so infuriating when they just take something that is the key to your engine, the thing that is holding your deck together. They're just like, oh, I can see that is the thing that I need you to not have. So it's
and they're aware that is the thing that they must take.
Right, exactly. Like from a gameplay perspective, it makes sense. From a strategic perspective, it is ideal. But like most of the time, it's not the thing that they need the most, which I don't know, just kind of makes it feel all that worse.
Right. There's that balance between the right play, which, slowing your opponent up so badly that you are, that you are now in a position of strength, or taking the thing that's going to best help you. It may not be the best thing they have, but it helps you the most. So, and then which of those options becomes the best option? Well, too many times for too many people, it's take their best thing. They're running a theme deck, and it's and they've got some card out that gives all of their creatures some kind of massive bonus. Well, and you steal that away, and now they don't get any bonus, but you only got 1 creature on the board, so you're really not getting anything out of it. It's like, this is just that becomes a case of how are you playing this game?
And I mean, I think it extends to like the older cards, like Control Magic and its ilk, where it's an enchantment that if you get rid of the enchantment, it comes back to your play. But if you're not playing for that specifically, chances are you don't have much enchantment removal in your deck, even if you are running the correct amount of enchantment removal. But if they're building their
Right.
deck around taking your commander, taking your creatures, taking your permanents,
Yes.
then chances are they either have ways to recur that or ways to do it in a different way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're going to be able to do it repeatedly.
And
You know.
like the thing with taking your commander, and I've had this happen plenty of times, is that they'll just hold on to it. They won't attack with it, so you'll never have a chance to kill it unless you somehow do. You run a certain amount of removal in your deck. You run a certain amount of enchantment removal. All these things, yes. But
Right.
when it matters the most, when you're playing against a deck that is built around this mechanic, you need more than your average removal. And in Commander, there's no sideboards.
Yes, and this is one of those situations where, if your opponent just plays removal, your commander is now gone. You have to pay 2 more to get it back. But you can do that. This way, you don't need 2 more mana. You need your own piece of removal. Just so your commander may very well, maybe you even have to kill your own commander just to get it back out. So you're playing an extra card, you're paying mana, you're doing all this other stuff just to get yourself back into the position where you're at. And I can hear a lot of you saying, yes, that's kind of the point of Magic, is to make them burn their resources on things to keep themselves at just the state that they're in, while I use my resources to get ahead. And I get that, but let's not forget, we are playing Commander. A social format. We want everyone to have a good time. How much of a good time are they having if you've just got the commander sitting there and you're doing all you can to stop them from taking it away? I get the benefits, but
and for as much as decks should be not necessarily built around needing the commander out, you build a deck around a commander, period. Like, that's, unless you're building a X color good stuff. And so, like, you want your commander out. That's why you have it in the command zone. And for somebody to take it and not do anything with it, or for somebody to take it and not let you have it back, it's rough, it's cruel. And I think the thing to keep in mind too is that, sure, you might have removal this turn, you might not have removal next turn, so they could do it again. Or more likely, you have removal this turn and they have a counterspell because this is blue, so they just don't let you ever target it. And they're more focused on keeping your commander out of your hands, but you're trying to get it back. And so I think just what I'm trying to say is they need to reprint Homeward Path just because it's so expensive.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about Homeward Path, because this is a card that I think more people need to be aware of. I think more people should be playing it. The joy of Homeward Path, folks, it's a land. It taps for colorless mana.
That's the amazing part for me, is the fact that it taps for mana rather than just the thing.
So stop right there. If none of your stuff is ever taken, this is a land that taps for colorless mana. Now, maybe you're playing a 5-color deck and you can't afford to have that land in your deck. Okay, fine. But I can tell you,
5 colors.
Even if you're running a 3-color deck, can probably still put Homeward Path in your deck. With the right amount of fixing, you can make it work. If you're not running, cards with 4 colored pips of each color in your deck, Homeward Path can probably work. And more importantly, for those of you who don't know, the second ability is to tap Homeward Path. Each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. Yeah. So all this theft shenanigans, all these control magic stuff, poof, gone. Yeah. You get it back. And the best part is, if there's a control magic on it, it doesn't even fall off. It stays on the card. It doesn't. Homeward Path.
You just get the creature back, and it just
you get the creature back, and it just says control magic, because there are other versions of control magic where it gives the creature a benefit. I can't remember which one it is, but Binding Grasp, I think, gives it a +1 on the back end. God, oof. I'm digging deep here, folks.
You know, you're probably also saying right now, Andy, Bruce, it says just creatures. To be fair, most of the time, if it's a non-creature enchantment or something, it's probably not, like, it's not holding you back from playing your game. You know, your commander is a creature, period, unless it's a planeswalker, and then you've got a problem. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you know, it is, you know, you said in 3-color decks, you should probably be running. Absolutely. If it wasn't a $20 card, I'd be running it in all of my decks. Because it is worth any sacrifice for specific color for that ability in and of itself.
Right. And my meta specifically is littered with people taking my stuff all over the place. Everybody's running it. There's if they're running blue or red, they've probably got a way to steal something of yours. And even if they're borrowing it, they're going to sack it. So this is just a way to get some of that back. Or at worst, they steal it from you, and then you just sit there and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't like the way this is going, no, we're gonna do this right now. You're gonna have to sack my creature in response to whatever it is, to me trying to get it back, and I'm not gonna let you do what you're trying to do. So
I like too that with this, it also brings up the idea of people playing cards out of your library, or exiling the top of your library and playing those cards.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's happening more and more, where, you know, it's like exile the top 3 cards of X player's library, and you can play them if you can, you know, pay mana as though or any color type of thing. And this would also help with that. And I think that after Agent of Treachery, they kind of learned their lesson, because with Agent of Treachery, if you remove Agent of Treachery, you don't get the creature back. And with a lot of the older stuff, it was, you know, enchantment based, where if the enchantment was removed, the creature would eventually come back. So Agent of Treachery was kind of the pinnacle of garbage, of mean. But then you have things like in Commander Legends, or even Adventures in Forgotten Realms, of Mind Flayer, which is a blue creature, not to be confused with the Universes Beyond Mind Flayer, the black creature, legendary creature from the Stranger Things thing. But Mind Flayer's 3 blue for 3/3, and it says whenever Mind Flayer enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Mind Flayer. So if you do flicker shenanigans, it does release the thing, you know. Or if you know, the only way to get multiple things with one creature, especially in Commander, is to double the triggered ability. And so I feel like we're seeing a lot more of these types of things where it is easier to get your thing back. Without, for some reason, I mean, Homeward Path has been printed 3 or 4 times at this point, but the last time it was printed was 2017. We need it again. Because at $20, this card could just help so much.
I had no idea that it was that it was that expensive. That just blows me away.
It's absurd for a colorless land to cost so much money. But I guess because it's colorless, it can go in any deck.
Yeah. The way things are going with Theft, you want it in practically every deck. There's just so little downside to adding Homeward Path to your deck. It makes so much sense, because it stops so much goofiness, and not like you said, it's not just the theft, it's when opponents are playing your cards from exile. I mean, Homeward Path works there as well, so it gets to be quite the beast. So,
is this weird designation of theft and borrowing where, like, essentially you're doing the same thing, where with borrowing, like threat effects, you're taking it for a turn. And then with stealing, yes, you're taking it forever until it dies. But it's not the same as just taking it every turn. And there is this significant feel bad of not being able to control your own creature, especially if it's something as big as your commander. And I mean, I've definitely like gone through phases of wanting to take other people's creatures, and there's a time and place for it. And the way I look at it is a very similar way to how I look at like countering somebody's commander. Because with countering somebody's commander, they can just play it again. But like, it is a big part of their strategy. It's a big part of how their deck synergizes with itself.
Right.
And I like, if they're a big enough threat, it kind of all comes down to threat assessment. If they're doing something with it, great. If they're doing something with the commander that they took from you, great. Somebody's doing something
great as long as it's not hitting you. But yeah.
I mean, even then though, like it's a little bit of feel bad, but like it's not as bad as if it just was like, okay, I'm just turning this off. I'm gonna put it to the side and forget about it.
Right.
And it's I don't know. I'm stuck in this loop of kind of similar with counterspells, honestly, of like I see their purpose, I see the usefulness in certain decks. I play less of them than probably the average player. But there are definitely like times that I like get inspired for certain decks where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play this and this and this and this. I'm going to play counters. I'm going to play control stuff, like control magic type stuff. And I usually end up second guessing it, or I end up not playing it altogether.
Right.
But there's this sense of fun on the other side of like finding certain synergies to other people's cards in how they would work with your deck. But so I guess my thesis for this episode is like if you're gonna play this stuff, do something with it. Read the card, but like, oh, this will be great with this thing in my hand. I don't know.
Right. No, I agree. Don't just take it so somebody else can't have it.
Yeah, don't just take it just because you can,
Take it because you want to do something with it. Like, go the extra step.
Yeah.
Take advantage of what you've got and not just have it sit there like a lump.
Yeah. If you're going to take somebody's meteor golem because they keep flickering it every turn 3 or 4 times, Bruce, then yeah, that makes sense why you would take it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If your livelihood depends on it, then yes, do it. But with everything we talk about, there's specific situations, there's specific scenarios that it would make sense to go one way or the other. But I feel like so often it is down the middle of like
foreshadowing. There, I knew I'd get it right before the end of the episode. Andy, if you could splice this piece in way at the front, that'd be great.
I'm going to splice it in every 10 minutes of you just going foreshadowing. Right. Most of the time, I feel like it just goes down the middle. In my experience, with the metas that I've played in, I feel like probably half the time a thing gets stolen from me, it just sits there and does nothing, and I have to either remove it or not use it at all, which honestly just kind of sucks Because, like, it's different than being countered. There's still the opportunity. It's still on the battlefield.
Yeah. It's there. It's reminding you of how good life could be.
Do something with it. That's all I ask.
I think we end on that note.
Yeah. With a chaotic nature of foreshadowing and complaining.
There we go. Do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as we wrap things up, we'll be back next week with a deck tale of one of my decks. I don't know. I'm running out of decks to talk about, and I haven't built anymore. So,
get on it.
I think I have a few that I can talk about. I'll talk about one of them. We'll see next week. I think we're going to wrap things up here because we're Temple of Falspod. I got to get back to work. We're Temple of Falspod. Where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. Fun. I'm Andy.
Fun. I'm Bruce.
That was my neighbor. And,
yeah.
Have a great night. Play some Magic for me. May your 5th land be the Temple.
And not a control magic. I don't know how the 5th land can be control magic, but whatever. You get it.
May your 5th land be Homeward Path.
There we go. Good. Bye!
Wait. Before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. You can reach out to us via email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com or on Twitter @falsepodmtg. Bruce is @manaburned, and I'm @AndyWeekend, though you'll definitely notice I use the podcast Twitter far more often. Now that we've got you here, make sure you subscribe, rate us on whatever podcast platform you use. It helps us out. It gets us more reach. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like a video there. Leave some comments for more casual enjoyment. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with some more timeless discussions about all things casual. So come hang out, and may your 5th land be the Temple. Bye-bye. Should I do my best, Bruce? Bye!